All right, welcome back, everybody. So this week we're going to take a look at the Total Finishing Solutions Viper. Let's get to it. All right, welcome back to the channel. So this week we have Total Finishing Solutions Air Assisted Airless Viper. Interesting, I saw this last year at the IWF show. It's been out for about a year now, and I was looking to add a gun to a rig, and I wanted to try something different, and so I decided to pick this up. The price point on this is probably the best price point on an air assisted airless gun on the market. $499.99, so $500, and you get yourself an extraordinarily good air assisted airless gun. I was actually really surprised at how nice this gun is. Now, let's talk a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. So, a lot of people, by looking at the gun body, you would think that it's like a GM 4700, or there's another company in Italy. I'm not sure how they pronounce their name. It's Brizzo, I think. It's Brizio or Brizzo. It is neither one of those. They had this developed with the manufacturer in Italy, but it is neither one of those gun bodies. It is its own thing. Now, the rest of the gun is basically made up of Kremlin aftermarket parts. So basically, you have a Kremlin air cap, and you have the non-OEM Kremlin tips. And then also, I'm going to show you a close-up of this later. This air cap here is an exact replica of the Kremlin air cap, which a lot of people have been asking me how this gun compares to the Kremlin, and we're going to look at that later in the video. So I've been running this gun for about a month now, and I am extremely impressed, especially for the money. Now, some other features that they have available in this gun, you have a full range of all the Kremlin tips, and you can use Kremlin parts on this gun if you want to, which I'm going to show you here in a little bit. But they do have 3 different spring tensions. So it comes with a 120. You can go down to a 60, or you can go up to a 200 bar spring. And basically all that means is that if you're going to run pressures higher than, I think it's 1425-ish with the 120 that comes with it, you're going to need a stronger spring. Okay, so, and basically what happens is if you pull this trigger and your pressure is too high, basically the spring will compress and get stuck, and basically you'll just have fluid flying up. The gun's not going to blow up or anything like that. So we recommend the 120 bar. Now, if you're spraying stuff that's going to be underneath 120 bars, so maybe you're under like 1,000 PSI, you can change the spring in it and do that. Now, the ergonomics of the gun are very nice. I like them. The other thing that I do feel like is a must that I would highly recommend is the swivel, okay? We did put the swivel on the gun so that basically we could easily take in and out the screen filter. And I think that's another 30, 40 bucks, something like that, maybe less than that. I may be telling you wrong on that. I don't always remember prices very well. So anyway, that's pretty much it with this gun. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to turn the camera around here, and we're going to look at some differences, and then we're going to take a look in the shop and show you the differences in what I've found with Kremlin tips versus the non-OEM, and also what's the difference between this gun and this gun, okay? So let's turn the camera around and let's just take a look at it. Now, before I do this, I do want to say that at the end of the day, all these guns are a personal choice. And the differences that I'm going to show you does not necessarily make one better than the other. It just makes them different. Either of these two guns, if set properly, you can get any kind of finish you want. All right. So with that said, let's turn it around and take a... Okay, so we're going to start out and look at the air caps. Basically, the air caps look absolutely identical. The only difference is these have silver pin in the back, and these have a black pins in them. So basically, the air caps look absolutely identical. Now, there is a little bit different in the housing. This one sticks out further than this one, but other than that, it's the same. Okay, so the tips look identical. This one is the Total Finishing Solutions, and this is the Kremlin one, but they're exactly the same. Okay, now taking a look at the gun. Here's where you're going to notice your differences, okay? Now, as you can see, the Kremlin air cap holes are larger than the Total Finishing Solutions. And if you really zoom in here, also these air holes here are larger. Now, when you take this off, there is a slight difference between the two, but they will fit interchangeably with each gun. And we're going to talk a minute about what I see different-wise with this one than that one. As far as that's concerned, that's pretty much it. And then you obviously have your shape. Now, one other thing, too, on the air side is you'll notice that this has a beveled insert air where this one has nothing. It's just straight through, okay? But as far as the fluid side is concerned, they're absolutely identical. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera back around, and I'm going to talk about my experience with the tips and the air caps, and then I'm going to demonstrate and then kind of do a final roundup on what I think. Basically, these guns look identical. Okay, and the tips look identical. Here's where they're different. The air caps and the air holes are different. What I noticed is, and please keep in mind what I'm saying here, if you want this gun to spray like this gun, you need to run about 3 to 5 PSI higher. And the reason for that is obvious in the air cap design and in the holes. They're smaller, common sense, you're getting less airflow. The other thing I noticed with this air cap, which I'm going to demonstrate in a minute, is, and I had a lot of you guys comment and say, well, it sounds different. It does. For some reason, this air cap sounds slightly more restrictive than this air cap, which is kind of interesting because all of this has led to greater knowledge, and I think is going to better the industry if people don't get mad and they go the right direction with what I'm saying. Okay, as far as the tips, what I noticed is that the aftermarket and the Kremlin tips are different in terms of the pattern that they display, okay? The aftermarket tips have a triangular shape to them, where the Kremlin tips have more of an oval shape, which I'm going to demonstrate here in just a second. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that, and then let's talk about all of this, okay? Okay, so the first thing that we talked about is, the air caps look exactly the same, but when you use it, it's slightly different. And so I want you to kind of hear the sound. I'm going to swap them out, and I'm going to try to do them so that they're back to back so that you can actually hear them. So this is the Total Finishing Solutions. Again, here we go.
like a higher pitch sound. Now let's swap over to the Kremlin
Okay,
cap.
same gun. Now let's listen to the Kremlin cap. Has a lot more, it sounds less restricted, has a very a lower sound to it. So you're going to hear more of a. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do these back to back and splice the video so that you can hear. Okay, so now I have the tip in, and what I want you to pay attention to between these two is the V pattern. So the total finishing tip is going to be wider and go this way and that way and have a wider V pattern than the other tip does. So when I spray this, you're going to see this really wide V pattern, very sharp. And then when I put in the Kremlin tip, you're going to see more of an oval pattern to it. So the way that they're cutting the tips is slightly different. So let me show you this one. So this is the Total Finishing Solutions tip. Okay, you can see that really sharp V pattern. Okay, now I'm going to switch over and go to the Kremlin tip, and you're going to see with this Kremlin tip is that you're going to see a pattern that comes out and is more oval. It's not going to be as sharp this way and this way. It's going to kind of come out and curve in this direction and then this direction here. So let me spray that one, and then what I'll do is I'll cut the clips so that you can see the difference when I'm spraying one versus the other. But here's the Kremlin tip. You can see that is wildly different than the other tip. Now, both of these are 06114 tips. And they're both brand new tips, so you can't say, oh, one's worn out, one's not, all right? See it? Okay, now I'm going to cut the video so that you can see it. Okay, you can see that really sharp V. See it? Okay, you can see that really sharp V pattern. Okay, so as you can see, there's visibly a difference, right? So the question is does it make a difference in the outcome? So I would say that you get a slightly softer edge with the Kremlin, which in certain applications could show up, but your general use, you're not going to see a major difference. But that softer edge, like sometimes in dark colors, and if you looked at the pattern, the Kremlin was very center focused. So in certain dark color applications, especially very matte finishes like 5 sheens and 3 sheens, sometimes this can show up to where you're seeing lines and striping in it because the edge is so hard. So that's one of the experience. The other thing that I have experienced with these aftermarket tips and tips that are made by Wagner is when they have that really huge V-taper, they tend to clog more than the Kremlin tips do. So, with that being said, what I did was I took my air cap off of this gun and put the Kremlin air cap and tips on, and we ran it. And once we did that, we could see no noticeable difference in this gun versus the Kremlin gun, except about 3 PSI difference. You got to run this one a little bit higher. And again, it just makes common sense. You've got a little bit more restricted pathway in it. Now, you know, they may tell me I'm full of crap, but I'm just telling you what I see in my experience. So, potentially, well, not potentially, is that's what we like to do with this gun. We like to run the actual OEM Kremlin tips and the Kremlin air cap. Not to say you can't run the other ones and get amazing results. So, and it still is cheaper than buying a Kremlin gun. So if you were looking for a lower cost alternative. I think the Kremlin air cap's about $200, and the Kremlin air cap, or the Kremlin tips, run about 125 versus 85 for the Total Finishing Solutions non-OEM tips. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, and we're going to do some more stuff on air assisted airless and talk a little bit more about it. But hopefully this helps you. I do highly recommend this gun. I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to pick one of these up. I'm not getting paid for any of that. But the thing that I have noticed, which is very interesting with these, is they have a different filter system on it. Okay? This is the difference between your filter system. And interestingly enough, and I don't know why, but the filter in this one rarely gets dirty. The Kremlin filter, I have to clean it regularly. The only thing I can think of is that because it has this, the way that this thing fits in here, it almost completely closes off the filter system. So it's like nothing can get past this point here. But that is something that we have noticed that's sort of random. I've never seen anything on that filter, whereas when we run it with the Kremlin filter is always that way. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content. And remember, guys, test, don't guess. We'll catch you next week.